What's going on, everyone? Clawblade here. I'm finally back with another Neverwinter video. I know it took me a while to bring you guys some new content, and I'm really sorry. But I wanted to say thank you to everyone who stuck around and continued to support the channel in my absence. So, in today's video, I'll be going over my Paladin Justicar build for Mod 23. This build is created to tank just about anything by focusing solely on defensive stats. It works great for group content like trials, dungeons, and adventuring in a party. Now, keep in mind that not everything on my current build is maxed out, nor do I have everything I am aiming to use. I still have a lot left to upgrade, but those upgrades go towards strengthening my build as a tank anyway. For the missing items, I'll let you know what I intend to replace them with. Also, I want to let everyone know that nothing I have on my build is locked behind time content. You may have to save up some Astro Diamonds, sure, but a little luck and strategy, everything is obtainable. I think everyone here has waited long enough, so let's dive into this tank build, shall we? To start things off, we'll be looking at our races. Now, currently, I'm running my build as a Dragonborn. Choosing a race is not crucial to the build, nor does any race I mention influence the build to a shifting degree. These races I chose as being ideal for tanks to run as for the bonus stats and attributes they come with. Let's start with the Dragonborn. Comes with a 5% bonus to incoming healing, as well as a 3% bonus to critical strike and power. The critical strike and power are not really necessary, but they will do a tad more damage in solo content. They also have a nice feature to choose both your ability scores and give a +2 to each of them, rather than most providing you one and choosing the other. My recommendation for a tank would be to choose Constitution and either Strength for a bit more physical damage, or Charisma to help boost your Forte and recharge speed. Next, we have the Human. A fairly standard, well-rounded race, providing a 1% bonus to all offense and defensive stats. For their ability scores, you only can choose one, but are given a +3 to that stat instead. Because it's only one stat being increased, I would select Constitution for the added hit points. Next is the Dwarf. If I wasn't running a Dragonborn for my tank, I'd probably be playing as a Dwarf for its focus on defensive boosts. They provide a 20% resistance increase to knockback and push effects, which against dragons will be very helpful, and a large 5% bonus to defense. This would be a relief to some if you're trying to get that defense stat up to 90%. It comes with a +2 to Constitution and has you choose either Strength or Wisdom. For a tank build, I would recommend choosing Strength since Wisdom is not used all that much. Next is the Half Elf. This race will provide you with 3% bonus to your crit severity, deflection, and gold gain. Really, the only thing that makes it worthwhile is the deflection bonus. It gives a +2 to Constitution, much like the Dwarf, and either a +2 to Charisma or Wisdom. Again, Wisdom is not used all that much on a tank, so I will be recommending going with Charisma. The Half-Elf also grants a +2 to a specific score based on the class. For Paladins, it will provide a +2 to Dexterity, which is, yeah, whatever. Finally, we have the Aasimar, which provides a 2% bonus to power, outgoing and incoming healing, defense, and your max hit points. Most of those are very helpful for a tank. They also provide a 2% bonus to max HP to all nearby party members. This will allow party members to survive a bit longer in battle. And like the Dragonborn, it gives you the ability to select both your ability scores to increase by 2. So, like the Dragonborn, I would recommend Constitution and either Strength or Charisma. I should also mention that both the Dragonborn and the Aasimar are premium races, meaning they can only be purchased separately in the Zen market for 500 Zen each. I would only recommend these two races if you're considering really committing to the game, otherwise the other races mentioned will be more than enough. As I said before, the race you select won't have a large impact on your build. Now that the races are done, let's take a look at the powers. These will include your at-wills, your encounters, your dailies, and your class features. For the at-wills, I'm running Radiant Slam to help get into battle before teammates with a lunge attack, and Oath Strike as my main attack to help generate my threat. If you feel confident that you can build up enough threat, you could swap it out for Shielding Strike to help stamina restoration. For my encounter powers, I tend to do some swapping depending on the situation. If I'm against single targets like bosses, I use Smite. It does a large amount of damage to the target and provides the added bonus of putting you at the top of the threat list. If I'm assisting with mob clearing, I'll swap it to use Bane instead. I find it does a lot of damage to enemies in the designated area, and if you place it in the right way, you can hit a lot of targets at once. You could also run Templar's Wrath instead of Bane as an AoE attack, but I like Bane more because you can place that attack area down anywhere, whereas Templar's Wrath is hitting targets around you. The other two I keep for both situations are Vow of Enmity to help keep me at the top of the threat list, and Binding Oath, which damages targets when you take damage and helps restore stamina. Daily powers are pretty straightforward. Divine Judgment for massive single target damage helps you get your threat up fast, and Shield of Faith, which decreases damage party members take by 5% and increases incoming healing by 10% for 10 seconds. For class features, I use Aura of Valor to help me stay at the top of the threat list, as it reduces all party members' threat generation by 5%. This way, you won't be fighting the DPS for the top spot. Believe me, it sucks when it happens. The other one I use is Divine Challenger, mainly because I have to have it equipped in order to get the bonus on Smite to place me at the top of the threat list. Another one I could recommend using would be Composure, if you're finding it too difficult or too slow to get Divinity back. This will regenerate it back 10% faster. Now let's move on to the feats. Now, these don't really have to be followed to the letter. The ones I've chosen are not required to make this build work. Some can be used instead, so if you feel like you want to change it up, feel free to. For the first feat, I went with Sacred Shield. Now, I don't use either Sacred Weapon or Divine Touch as my encounter powers. Both are no good to me. However, I would probably use Sacred Weapon more, hence why I chose it. Now, the second feat I did choose based on encounters I use. I went with Baneful Strikes, which grants a 5% chance that your at-will attacks will reduce the divinity cost of your next Bane to 0. I love this, especially since Bane is a costly attack to my divinity. It actually pops up more frequently than you might think. The third feat can be either or. Both are pretty good at restoring the same amount of divinity. I chose Divine Pursuit though because I feel that I use my encounter powers and at-will attacks more often than I do blocking. Sheltering Light? Well, since I'm using Shield of Faith instead of Divine Protector, it seemed obvious to choose that feat. Whenever you get healed while Shield of Faith is active, the party members under the effect will be healed for 50% of what you were healed for. This helps if everyone is low on HP and the healer can only heal one at a time. Now, with Shield of Faith up, everyone can get healed. Finally, I went with Unyielding Champion. It reduces Divine Champion's cost by 10 and will block up to 60% of your max hit points. This, I believe, is much better for tanks as it can really save you from massive damage hits, and I don't need another ability to boost my threat. I already have Smite and Vow of Enmity to help me out with that. Alright, for your attributes, you're going to want to be focusing on 3 different types. Primarily, you're going to be wanting to focus on your Constitution, as well as your Charisma, for recharge speed and maximum hit points. If you have any other points you can spend, I would highly recommend putting them into Strength for a little bit extra damage, but it's not totally necessary. When leveling up, you're just going to want to be putting your points into both Constitution and Charisma to get the most out of those attributes. Alright, let's move on to the feet and tomatoes of this build, the gear. First, we have the headpiece. I'm using the rugged Sallet of the Dragon Hunter. Not only is it the only headpiece for Mod 23 content that provides all defensive stats, 1300 defense and critical avoidance, but it also comes equipped with the Manticore's Mane's Bite. This is especially useful on tanks since they have a much higher max HP, meaning more damage at the target when you get hit. Next, we move on to the armor piece. I'm using the Crimson Scalebreaker's Ward Cuirass. This can be obtained from grinding over in Dragonbone Vale. In addition to more defensive stats, 810 defense and control resist, and a little over 1000 awareness, it comes with a handy ability, Skirmisher's Versatility, Whenever you deal combat damage, which should happen frequently, especially in boss battles, there's a 10% chance to increase your accuracy, combat advantage, crit avoidance, and deflect severity by 8% for 10 seconds. The other armor I would recommend obtaining would be the Rugged Mail of the Dragon Hunter from Ancient Dragon Farming. This comes equipped with Boar's Determination, which increases your awareness by 7.5% and stamina regen by 5% for 10 seconds, when damaged for more than 15% of your max hit points in a single blow. Be prepared to farm a lot of Ancient Dragons if planning to go for this one. The arms are next. I'm currently wearing the Mighty Vambraces of the Dragon Hunter for the equipped ability Defender Strike. You gain a 1% damage resistance when you strike an enemy and can stack 5 times. When you get struck, the stacks are consumed and you gain a 1% damage per stack for 10 seconds. This is an old but useful ability to have for tanks since you're building up that damage resistance. Next, we move on to the feat piece. For this one, I'm using the Rugged Sabatons of the Dragon Hunter because of its Ghosted ability, which provides a 10% chance to increase the wearer's max HP by 20% and defense by 3% for 10 seconds when hit by a critical strike. That is a huge amount of bonus max HP, even if it is only a chance, and especially for tanks since they have a large number of hit points already. These boots can be attained from killing ancient dragons. And now for the rings. I recommend using the Stalwart Needle Ring of Celerity as the first ring, which helps generate threat as long as you're moving around. And the second is the Stalwart Needle Ring of Bulwark, which the wearer takes 10% less damage from dragons. A very helpful ring to have in this mod. It makes a huge difference. Both can be attained after farming ancient dragons. For the artifact set, which includes the iridescent diamond pendant neck piece, the scintillating diamond buckle waist piece, and the refulgent diamond pin artifact combination, I went with the diamond set, obtainable in Sharandar. It provides a great increase to the 3 ability scores needed, being Constitution, Charisma, and Strength. It also provides a useful ability, especially for tanks, where when standing still for 3 seconds, you take 5% less damage, your awareness is increased by 5%, and your threat generation is increased by 10%. I would have also included the Northern Jewels set as an alternative, in which if your role is a tank, you generate 15% more threat, but I excluded it since it was a timed exclusive and new players wouldn't be able to obtain it going forward. For the shirt and trousers, I try to use ones that provide defensive stats. I'm currently wearing the Rugged Dwarven Body pattern and the Valiant Dwarven Limb pattern, both from Ancient Dragon Hunts. Having a set of Dwarven shirt and trousers like these from the hunts provides a set bonus too, increasing your power, critical severity, and awareness by 1500. It's not too bad considering most shirt and trousers don't come with a set bonus. For my artifacts, aside from the diamond pin, which is needed for the set bonus, I also use the Sparkling Fey emblem found in Sharandar, the Black Dragon's Mark found in the Ancient Dragon Hunts vendor, and the Dragon Bone Blades. Now, these can be easily substituted for the Wyvern Coated Knives as they provide the same stats. I'm running these due to the fact that many will be running the Wyvern Knives for their ability, and the Dragonbone Blades can stack a similar effect onto targets. Finally, we get to the weapons. Now, there are multiple options for you guys in terms of what weapon set to run with. I'm currently equipped with the Lionheart set found in the Tower of the Mad Mage trial, which will increase or decrease the outgoing damage and incoming damage depending on your stamina remaining. So, whether you have a full bar of stamina or an empty one, it will help your tank overall. The other options available are the Durgan Thord set and the Masterwork 7 set. For the Durgan Gourd set, as it does not state any cooldown, this could be a very useful set to have for any role. I do plan to obtain this set and swap it in instead of my current Lionheart set. The Masterwork 7 set obtained through crafting in the Stronghold might be the most difficult and most expensive set to obtain, as master crafting can be very time consuming and pricey. I would only recommend this set if you're committed to master crafting and plan to have everyone in your party run this set. Otherwise, you're better off with one of the other 2 sets mentioned. In terms of reinforcements, I recommend equipping Major Deflection Armor Kit +1s and Major Awareness Jewel +1s to help get these stats closer to the cap, as these ones are a little tougher to get to max. For enchantments, I found it easy to run all offense slots with Garnet enchantments to get my power as high as possible, and in the defense slots to run Jade enchantments and a Citron enchantment to boost up my deflection and critical avoidance stats. Utility, I find it best to run another Garnet for a boost to the Forte stat, and in the bonus slot, an action bonus, which will help with your action point gain. For the combat enchantment, I recommend running a defensive one like Fortified Nature. It decreases your damage taken and increases defensive stats when receiving damage and can stack up to 5 times. Once the stack is consumed, you are healed for 7.5 of your maximum hit points. Alright, now that the gear is complete, let's move on to the companions page. So for my companion, my active companion, I'm currently using the cat. As an augment companion, this one will provide me with a bonus to my deflect, my awareness, and my deflect severity, which is very important for a tank. For the equipment, I am currently running 2 Wildmare Sword Knot of the Companion +3, both of which you can find in Sharendar through their hunt system. And then the Tarnished Onyx Grimoire of the Companion, which is providing critical avoidance and incoming healing, which you can find as a reward at the end of the adventure Dragonbone Vale. I also recommend putting on a companion enchantment regardless of its level, although the higher the better, as you want to have your companion's augment abilities or stats to be as high as possible. In this case, this one is giving me an extra 7,500 to each of those bonus stats that we mentioned. For the enhancement power, I've decided to go with Armor Break to help out with my fellow party members to decrease an enemy's defense by 7.5%. For the companion bonuses, in the defense power slot, I'm going with the Slime's Insight to increase my defense by 7.5%. For the offense slot, I'm using the Golden Deep Crow's Presence, which is increasing my awareness by 7.5%. In one of the universal slots, I'm using the Blink Dog's Presence, which increases my deflect chance and critical avoidance by 3.8%. In the other universal slot, we have Cat's Instincts, which increases the deflect chance and defense by 3.8%. And finally, in my utility slot, I am using Wattler's Presence, which increases my deflect by 7.5%, as well as providing a 10% damage in Day of the Dungeon Master match, which unfortunately is not around at the moment. Now let's move on over to the mounts. For my combat power, I've decided on using Grand Inspiration, which helps for dealing some extra damage to nearby targets, as well as providing a decent buff to allies, increasing their forte by 15%, along with an extra stat, depending on the role. For the equip power, I'm going with Untouchable, which increases my deflection by 4,500. This can be altered depending on which stat you need to increase more of though. You can obtain this ability from mounts such as the Starry Panther, the Yeth Hound, and the Bullet. In our stable, we'll start with our collars. I chose the Sturdy Barbed for my at-will damage, but feel free to change it to encounter powers instead. I use the Unified Regal Collar for its boost to incoming healing, the Supportive Crescent Collar for stamina gain, and the Wayfaring Regal Collar for action point gain. The final collar can be any of the practical ones, but I chose the Practical Regal to increase my Astral Diamond drop rate. For insignia bonuses, I'm running 2 Gladiator's Guiles for extra movement speed and stamina regen when my stamina is low. Keep in mind that if you plan to stack more than one of the same ability at a time, for every extra one you stack, it weakens the values that you receive. So my second Gladiator's Guile is only gonna give me half of what the first one is giving me. I'm also using Oppressor's Reprieve to give myself a heal over time whenever I'm stunned, knocked, or rooted. This helps especially during dragon fights. The next one I'm using is Barbarian's Revelry, where every time you crit, you receive a heal. I'm not too sure about this one since critical strike is so low on my character. If I could, I would switch it to either Victim's Preservation or Cavalry's Warning. For the final insignia bonus, I went with Survivor's Blessing. Pretty much the same thing as Barbarian's Revelry, the only difference is that you get a heal over time when you deflect rather when you critical strike. When selecting your insignias for these bonuses, aim to fill them with Courage, granting defense and critical avoidance, Fortitude, which boosts defense and max hit points, and or evasion to boost awareness and deflection. Alright, now that the mount system is done, let's take a look at our boon system. So for our boons, we're going to want to prioritize working on our defensive abilities, our defensive boons, as well as our maximum hit point boons. Once we have those maxed out, we can focus on some offensive ones. I suggest only working on power because that's really the only offensive stat you're going to want to be focusing on. After that, you can also work on control resist, such as disenchanting aura. You can also work on deflect severity to increase that, and you can work on movement speed. I also chose to add demonic mastery and undead necrotic mastery to help out with the damage resistance against undead and demonic enemies. For my tier 5, I chose masterclass to add forte, as well as second wind to increase my stamina regen. For my master boon, I went with focus retaliation, which will, every time I use an encounter power, I have a chance to increase my control resist, my deflect, and my deflect severity for each rank. If you're in a guild, which I highly recommend doing, you want to be focusing on just power for the offensive slot. For defense, I highly recommend going with hit points to max those as much as possible since there's no cap. You could also do awareness if you're having trouble with that stat, since it really helps against bosses, but I primarily would go with hit points. For utility, it can be whatever you want. I preferably like to go with the mount speed bonus, sometimes with the movement speed just to go a little bit faster, but it's completely up to you. So there we have our Justicar Paladin build for Mod 23. Did it help you get ideas for your tank? Was there an idea that you had that you wanted to share? Feel free to share them in the comment section below or on my Discord server. Again, I want to thank everybody for your continued support after my long hiatus. It really means a lot. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button along with the bell icon to get notified when new videos come out. Be sure to also check out my Twitch channel for live content and interactions. All these links and more can be found in the description below. So thank you again so much for stopping by, and as always, I look forward to seeing you all in the next video. Clawblade, signing off.